Be careful, don't drink it. I say don't drink the water, don't give it to your children, go get a lead test.
People here need help, clean drinking water. That's the number one thing on this earth, water, H2O, water.
Spit it out, spit it out.
And if you don't have that clean and you drinking poison, that's bad.
This is the first I've ever heard of this compound halosan being used in municipal drinking water systems. The EPA has not confirmed its safety.
I think we're prepared to live the lie, to tell people their water is safe when it's not. We've got this dirty secret in this country, and the dirty secret is we're third world when it comes to drinking water in these poorer communities.
We can't afford to treat Flint like it was some sort of an anomaly and everybody feels sorry for the people of Flint and they're grateful that it's not happening to them. It's happening to them.
I was not surprised when Flint occurred. I was expecting a Flint to occur.
I seen he was in Washington testifying about the water in Flint, Michigan, and something hit me. That's who we need to come here.
It's brown, it's dirty, it's the water coming out of Pauline Brown and Eugene Smith's faucets in their Denmark home. The jars Pauline keeps look like science experiments, floating particles, names and dates, and where the water came from.
There it is. See some of that? See that thing there?
There's something floating around in there. Where did these come from?
They come from the
faucet.
The faucet. So that's where I catch all my water. When it get bad, I go catch it.
This is what bothers you?
Right.
Because you don't know what this is?
No. It says 2012.
Ooh, that one smells bad.
When we had our water tested in Florida, it was bad. That's when they call up here. That's the other one, had it twice. It's high.
Is this your doctor?
Yeah.
So you were a 5. Your blood lead level was a 5, and then a 6. You have a lot of lead.
His doctors even wrote in 2011 that until his lead levels dropped, they are not to be exposed either by ingesting nor skin exposure.
When did you start taking your own sample?
2009 and on. That's how long we've been collecting water. Next thing we had a phone call.
They say about we had lead in the water, high iron.
So after you guys got these high lead levels back, did the state tell you what to do? Did they tell you not to drink the water? Did they give you any options?
No.
No.
Period.
They just told you you have high levels of lead and copper, and that's it?
It set me in the water more besides lead too. And so I want to know.
It's an unsettling thing to hear. There's lead in your water. That's what Paula Brown and Eugene Smith say they were told by the state. And they say they were already seeing brown water coming from their tap before any mention of lead. As for the state, they say they responded when called over the years, conducting tests to address their concerns, twice confirming lead, though on their last visit in 2010 it did not exceed EPA limits. But for the last 9 years, trust was eroding, and residents began documenting health concerns, rashes, kidney and bladder problems, some in kids as young as 12. Unsure if the culprit was lead or something else, Paula and Eugene started collecting water samples and searching for answers.
Gene,
How you doing, Mr. Elwood?
good to see you.
All right.
Can my team come into the house? Okay,
You're home.
great. So good to see you. Been a while.
Do you remember when you first heard from Paula and Eugene?
Oh yes. Whenever I get these calls, it's something that lasts with you forever.
Really glad y'all here watching. Whew.
People are calling you and they're very, very worried, and for them it's life or death.
That's got the whole boxes, everything in it?
They had just such a compelling case, scientifically, that for me, I don't forget those calls.
For their part, the state says there have been no recent complaints from Eugene Smith, which Smith agrees is true, but he says he went to city council meetings to express his concerns and even sought legal help. He says he's simply grown frustrated over the years.
You go first, yeah?
Okay. You got the lights, huh?
We went to see this for ourselves, to visit homes, to talk to residents. What we'll be doing is like looking at your water to see if there's chemicals in it that will kill bacteria. We're first going to start out by just looking at the lead in the water levels, and if there's high lead in the water, there's guaranteed to be lead in the plumbing, even if there's not pure lead pipe. Every house in America almost has lead in the brass. This faucet right here had lead added to the brass purposefully until about 2014. So no one is immune from lead in water. Any house built before 2014 usually has lead added to the plumbing.
So instead of sampling the water source at Denmark's wells, Edwards begins his testing in Denmark's kitchens.
You can use the scientific protocols that don't have the likelihood of contamination and just kind of cross-check to make sure that the story checked out. Sometimes when the paint color's lower, the bad chemicals are higher. So that's what we're going to be looking for. I probably get about 2 or 3 dozen calls a week. Basically, the longer the water sits, the more acidic it's getting. Started out at 5.2. Of those, only one a month really has a scientific case.
In those cases, you make the decision to go. What does that mean? You gather up students.
Yeah, my wife's soccer mom minivan with the acid stains in the carpet from all the trips we've had, and it's the perfect vehicle. I couldn't take a rental car because I can't explain why there's acid burns in the seats of those, but that van's seen a lot of bad water.
Tell me about Denmark.
Predominantly African American, low income. When I go to Denmark, what I see is the parts of America who've been left behind, that have lost population, that don't have money to maintain their water system. By going to a few towns like that, it really shines a light on this problem that's affecting thousands of towns across America. Proud, good, honest people, and they need help.
What Edward sees in Denmark,
But this is the source of the contamination right here.
he sees in small towns all across America. While the EPA says that the U.S. has world-class drinking water standards, and the majority of people do have safe water coming from their taps, the EPA's own data shows nearly 1/3 of public water systems are in violation of the Safe Drinking Water Act. That's more than 87 million Americans. And then there's this. Multiple government reports over the years show the problem is possibly much, much worse. The EPA's Inspector General admits there is a risk that data reported to the agency was not always reliable due to a lack of reporting from state and local communities, especially in rural America.
If you look at a map of water supply systems in the United States, 20% of Americans live in utilities that serve less than 10,000 people. That's where the greatest risk lies. The issue is that most of these small towns don't have a water system worthy of the 20th century, much less the hopes of having a 21st century system.
Here's the thing what we have been going through for all these years. 365 days in a year, that's what we have to go through. No water from the faucet, period. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
It feel better. Yeah.
Better?
Yeah.
Paul and Eugene couldn't even afford ink for a printer to print documents for you. How could they be expected to find and pay for their own safe drinking water?
They can't. When I saw that they spent $4,000 replacing their home plumbing for no good reason except someone gave them bad information and said that was the problem, you know, that's really sickening to me. These are folks who could use that money for other purposes. Thankfully, in Denmark, they have an amazing source of water just 10 miles away.
Healing Spring. Healing Spring. It's a place about 10 miles on the outskirts going out in the country. There you got it. Just set them in there.
How long have you been doing this?
Over about close to 9 years, close to 10 years.
This is quite a bit of work.
Yes, clean drinking water is a thing of life. And this right here is pure. I'm helping her get up. And what do you want, on 1 or 2?
3.
1, 2, 3.
Don't let me fall now.
No, I'm out, baby.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it. Yeah. I sure thank y'all for coming. Lord, regardless, I'm glad y'all came.
This is the Healing Spring water here. You can't drink it out the spigot. You gotta drink Healing Spring water. It's no good in the spigot.
There you see. Right now we are under a boil advisory, but boiling your water makes the lead worse. So if you boil the water to get the bacteria out, then you're making the lead content worse. So you really don't know what to do. Probably the last year and a half is when we noticed the health issues. We would seem to always, one of us, have either the upset stomach or throwing up, and the bacteria found in my stomach, the H. pylori, which makes me nauseated and painful in my stomach and vomiting. Then with Blake, I guess a year ago, with a cough he couldn't get rid of, and every month going to the doctor with bronchitis or a respiratory infection. My house, the bacteria in the water, less than 1 is safe, and mine was 15 times higher.
Was this around the time you got sick?
Yes. I was sick in December before this.
That was when you were in the hospital
Yeah,
for a
that's
month?
when I had bacterial meningitis. And then in September of 2017 is when I was diagnosed with the H. pylori. I cannot say that the water made us sick, but I can say I have proof that it causes what we have. So we don't know, and we never know, and you're afraid to drink it. You're afraid to open your mouth in the shower.
How many times have you had the main outside your house break?
Within the last 5 years, I'm estimating it's in the double digits that the main line is broke there, and that's just in my front yard.
What's the likelihood that there's a link between Jody and her family's health problems and the water?
It is the rare exception when you actually prove cause and effect between a problem in the water and a known health issue. In my career, I've only probably done that definitively, scientifically, 4 times.
I buy about 10 cases of water a week. I go to Jonesville, which is about 25 miles from here. This is actually donated water. We got each family 2 cases of water to try to help out with having to buy it.
Do you know how much the bad water has cost you?
Well, we redid this bathroom and all the plumbing, and that was $10,000. We've been through 3 hot water heaters, 4 faucets, plus we have all new lines on our side of the meter.
It's an expensive battle against her own tap water, water with bacteria, lead, and other contaminants that exceeded EPA limits. That's what a team of scientific and academic researchers, including Mark Edwards, found when they tested Enterprise's water in 2017.
The fact that I have to tell them, your system's breaking federal law, there are dangerous bacteria in your water, and they cause almost every ailment known to humankind. But I can't definitively say that when you were sick last week, that was the cause.
When mine comes out, it comes out black, like coffee.
Enterprise is really like true rural America where there is no town center. And these are folks who tend to be much more independent, middle class, rural, Southern America. Your water is really bad to bring me here, I'll tell you. And so how this has happened so long, I'm not really sure, but let's get it fixed.
They did have illegal water, very clearly, right?
Oh, yeah.
So whose responsibility is it to fix it?
Well, I think that's the question we're all dealing with.
It's a problem on all levels. Aging infrastructure across the country colliding with the immense cost of fixing it, which no level of government can shoulder.
Systems are going to continue to age and they're going to degrade, and we are more constrained than we would like to be. Therefore, we're not able to invest in all of these improvements as we would like to.
They just acknowledged that those problems existed and they weren't meeting the federal lead standard. They needed to implement corrosion control, that their disinfection byproducts and bacteria were too high. They flat out told them, there's not money to help you. I respect that personally. At least it's honest.
The governor's office told CNN an estimated $10 billion is needed to address water issues in their state alone. But, quote, unfortunately, the state doesn't have that kind of money. He's organized a committee to try and help towns like Enterprise.
You're getting frequent discolored water as well?
My water is brown.
Okay. So in the meantime, are you boiling your water? Is that what you're doing? Are you using bottled water?
It's not our fault that, you know, the water lines are breaking because we've tried to fix it. It's not our fault that the infrastructure's failing. I believe the government is responsible to help the people in their state. I mean, they're public servants.
For Water Board President John Tizer, it's all levels of government that have failed, with no real action taken over the years to fix the problem.
Okay, so this is bad. Yeah. How long has that been leaking like that?
Months. Our water loss is like up and around the 70–80% range. It boils my blood to know that somebody can sit up there and say they just have to deal with it. The only way they're going to get any help is if the water tower blows over. This is supposedly God's country. We are our brother's keeper here, right? We're all neighbors. We all know each other. I mean, it's the human right thing to do.
These pipes are obviously, they're very, very old.
Mark Edwards has been doing this for nearly 20 years now.
What motivated me was absolute shame. Shame that people in my profession, the environmental policemen, could be betraying the public trust, and I'm not going to stand by and allow that to happen. I don't relate to these bureaucrats who look the other way. I relate with the normal people who are drinking that water. I just can't stand the hypocrisy. I can't stand the dishonesty.
Does Virginia Tech pay for this?
Virginia Tech supports this work as long as I can afford to pay for it.
You personally?
Yeah. It's kind of like you work two jobs to do the work that you know is really, really important. And you save up that money, and that's the money that got us to Flint. That's the money that got us to Denmark.
That's him. That's him, Big Dog. Good morning, Big Dog. Big Dog, what you think about the bad water in Denmark?
Well, I've been listening to you, and it don't look good, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, Dr. Mark Evans say the water is only good enough to flush the toilet with.
How many times have you made this trip?
This is our third time to Denmark, and it's a long haul.
You told me in an email you could have told them this news over the phone.
I just can't do that to them.
It turns out the water that Paula and Eugene say they collected over 9 years from their home and from their neighbors' homes showed high levels of lead when tested in Edwards' lab.
And labeled the DBP bottles.
But when Edwards came to town in 2017 to test the water himself, results showed that lead levels were just over the legal limit. But Edwards says it wasn't significant enough to raise alarm bells. He found high levels of other metals like manganese and rust. That stuff turns water brown, making it nearly impossible to drink or to use. But it's not illegal.
You see all my fruit trees around here? I won't even give them flowers, Denmark water. I catch rainwater and put it on the flowers. And these are the seeds. That's how I feel about Denmark water. If I don't drink it, I'm not letting the animals out here drink it either. I make sure that they get clean water.
And yet, Mark Edwards can't let go of that nagging feeling that something is missing. So he decides he's going to request access to the town's wells. Maybe there's something else.
Hey, good morning. Is the mayor here? Mayor Wright?
He's not in the office at this time.
He's not in the office?
Something other than lead in the water. After all, there are thousands of potential water contaminants. But his request was denied.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, and how are you?
I'm good. So there are some concerns by more than a few of your citizens who think that the water is not up to the right standards.
We have done everything we needed to do to provide to the citizens a high quality of water. and we've done well with that.
I wonder, why did you change your mind about inviting Mark Edwards to test the wells?
I told him I thought it would be a waste of his time and resources to get the same samples.
But isn't that kind of his decision if it's a waste of his resources? I mean, he wanted to come in and test it, and he's independent, so at least it would overcome that hurdle of distrust of government, you know?
I don't have a reason to prevent him from sampling the wells.
Well, it's not exactly what he told us. He told us that you said no, that you wouldn't let him in.
Well, okay, well then I guess you have to decide whether you're going to believe him or believe me.
Okay, I have one last question for you. I realize that Denmark has a relatively small population, smaller than it used to be, and I know that that's a struggle for a lot of towns across the country, not just yours, certainly not isolated to you, and some places have it worse off. But a lot of money, grant money, has come in over the years to help with water infrastructure. Why haven't you been able to use that $2 million to fix the pipes that are old?
We've had, as you pointed out, several grants to do just that. And one grant itself is not adequate to replace all of the necessary pipes. We prioritize the ones that should be replaced first. At no time have we not responded to a need that was urgent. We've done that. So what we've done is all I know we can do.
4 times he said we could sample. 4 times we're about to go, and that changed his mind. I don't know why, because I fully expected to sample that well and find there was no problems. One of the things we found that was very, very worrisome is they would announce their test results before they'd done the testing. How can that happen? It can't, but it did.
Edwards is talking about this newspaper headline. Back in 2010, Denmark's newspaper, citing a city official, declared the city's water had no lead and copper problems. Dateline, December 1st, 2010. But the story published 9 days before state records showed the new samples were even drawn for testing. The mayor told CNN that officials relied on data that was 3 years old when talking to the newspaper because that's what was available at the time.
I think the mayor in Denmark is a likable fellow who, you know, deep down really does feel like he's trying to do right by his city. I'm not blaming anyone for what happened. We put these communities in an impossible situation. We say, here are the federal laws, you figure out how to meet them, and when they can't, no one's there to help them.
I've had members of Congress who have come to me and said, you know, I think we have a problem in my community, but the leadership wants me to shut up about it.
The leadership?
The leadership in these communities. So it's not just Congress that fails to act. Very often, people in communities that may know or have a sense that the water's not good, they just want to sort of tiptoe past the problem. They don't want to talk about it.
I've asked Republicans and Democrats in Congress to come together, delivering clean water.
Who's going to pay for that?
Well, we do. We have to. We all pay one way or the other anyway. I don't think there's any one party that can be held accountable for it.
But Congressman Kildee says the federal government just isn't motivated to take on the true cost to fix the problem. To put this into perspective, the EPA's own estimate puts the bill for water infrastructure improvements at over $743 billion.
It's not like we can avoid the true cost of the crisis. There's a whole set of communities that don't have the wealth, and that is when clearly another level of government has to come in. There's a national interest in this. The local governments can't do it. You know, we need to help.
On one of our trips to Enterprise, we passed by another small town. And like all small towns, this one had a story. It was about their high school. It was forced to shut down in the 1990s. The decaying classrooms, bleachers, and books, all that stuff remains. But much of the town does not. School officials tell us that a declining population was one of the reasons why the school was shut down. Another reason? Bad water. The name of the town? Waterproof.
There's never a ribbon-cutting ceremony when you fix an underground dirty water pipe. And that's why we typically invest more in bridges and airports and other things that can be a showcase. But the danger from these pipes is real. It's not just lead. And if we don't fix this problem, a whole lot of people get hurt when they're being told there's nothing to worry about.
What do you tell Paula and Eugene to do? Just keep waiting, move on? I mean, what's the end of their story?
Besides the fact that I love them and we will always be there and we will keep looking for that fire.
My grandmother raised me in the country.
Kind of adopted Paul and Eugene as kind of a grandma and grandpa, and they call me at least once a week. They're really amazing people.
I said, Grandma, I can't flash the law, baby. I want you to be free.
All right. My whole career, my best ideas have come from moms and dads and people working on the front lines, seeing things that I could never recreate in the lab. Okay, how about you, man? Sometimes you find those real truth seekers, truth speakers, like Paula, Eugene. They're better scientists than most professors. And why wouldn't you listen to them?
The EPA tells CNN an estimated $132 billion is needed to repair small water systems like Denmark and Enterprise over the next 20 years. More than $805 million was allocated to these systems in 2017. That's about 12% of the amount needed. Access to Denmark's wells was finally granted, though not to Mark Edwards. In April of 2018, led by the state and the University of South Carolina, some of the tests Edwards sought were finally conducted. The ensuing report declared Denmark's drinking water meets all requirements of all EPA health-based standards. As for Enterprise, due to outstanding debt, the town is not eligible to apply for a grant through the Louisiana Governor's Committee. The EPA recently gave Mark Edwards a $1.9 million grant to help fund these independent investigations. He's still driving his wife's minivan.
Halosan is a disinfectant that's used most commonly in industrial processes, swimming pools, spas. I've never once seen it used in a public water supply.
Never.
Never.
Put me in a drink and want us to drink it? That's crazy. And we're just a little small little town that's forgotten about. And it really hurts.